And it's not even anything to do with being a hater. I hate when people use the term hater. But in this sense, you're hating it just because it's got the name attached to it. Are you insane? Hating on a game before you've even gotten the chance to play it. Dislike bars. Oh, the graphics are no good. And this is coming from the same fuckwits who will say that graphics don't make a game. What the fuck? How's it going, my friends? I'm Fringy123, and welcome to an Angry Gamer Plays Battlefield 4. This is a first impression series where I angrily give you my impressions of the game thus far. Unless, of course, the game is good, in which case I won't be angry. Now, I've been playing Battlefield 4 for about 3 or 4 hours. I got up at midnight to play it, then went back to sleep, and now I'm playing again. And I've played on a number of the maps. Probably, I'd say, about 6 or 7 of the maps thus far, and through a little bit of the campaign. And I want to explain to you my thoughts on the game, and also talk about some issues surrounding the game. This game is pretty damn good, from my first impression. And if you remember my Battlefield 4 beta video, I was freaking pissed. But that was attributed to a number of factors. One, it was a beta, so the drivers weren't very good, and it was optimized for AMD, so it took a while for Nvidia to essentially sort their shit out. But regardless of that, it's working a lot better before, and it also had to do with recording. Recording makes the frame rate drop, and it's going to make the frame rate drop for this one and become more unstable, but not as bad as the beta. And scaling the graphics makes no difference to that. So, as you can see, the actual menu screen has been overhauled and it's a lot better now. So now you can actually, I don't know why people are complaining because it's better this way. You can actually see where you want to spawn on the map. You can move around and you can actually see what's going on in that area, so you don't just spawn and die. It also makes it a lot easier to spawn into vehicles. You also have all of your weapons up here, and by clicking onto the weapons you can be taken directly to this menu where you're able to sort out what sort of attachments or what weapons you're going to use. So here we can say, like, customize this weapon. Thought you could rotate it, but whatever. Change out the sights, change the grip, all that stuff. But you all know that anyway. So it's about time we actually got into the game. So let's spawn on capture point C. Okay, it's a little bit more unstable than I wanted it to be, but fuck it. It's more about what I need to talk about regards of this game than really what's, you know, then. So on PC, this game is pretty demanding. How demanding, you might ask? Well, I have i7 3770 overclocked, GTX 660, and 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm currently running this game on high settings at a stable 50 frames per second. For me, that's good enough. If it starts to get towards 30, that's where I draw the line. 30 becomes kind of shitty and defeats the purpose of getting a PC, really. If you're getting a PC, what you should care more about is getting a higher frame rate instead of fucking, my graphics are better. And as you can see, this is a good looking game. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be looking very good because it's unstable as fuck while I'm playing it, which is pissing me right off, but, you know, it's a good looking game. It's not like a drastic improvement over Battlefield 3, but it's alright, I suppose. You can say that it's an alright graphical jump. But really, graphics aren't all that's important. What you probably care more about is how it actually performs in terms of gameplay and whether that's improved. And it's essentially it's very similar. It's a very iterative sequel, as opposed to being revolutionary. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of the things that have been improved could have been patched, in my opinion. That doesn't mean it's not a good game, it is, but I feel like some of these things could have been patched. Like, the suppression should have been patched in Battlefield 3, like, after a week, because the suppression in that game was fucking awful. In this game, it's a little bit better, but that could have been patched. Things like the interface on PC was not very good, and that could have been patched. But apart from those things, which I would say are kind of major, I'd say that there are some other things that probably could have been patched. How do the weapons feel? Because, to be quite honest with you, the weapons feel very bullet hosey to me. When you compare them to the Battlefields of old, where you have to burst shot, otherwise you're going to miss all the time. In this game, I don't have to burst shot at all. Like, it's astoundingly... I'm surprised that it's this easy to kill people. Far too easy, I'd say. I mean, like, I've never played it in Battlefield 3 where I was doing as much just holding down and firing as I am in this one. Even when I'm trying to shoot people at long range, I don't need to really do that. So that may be an issue for some people, but, you know, whatever. Now, how do the maps fare? The maps are alright, I would say. I'd say they're reasonably good. My favourite that I've played thus far is, I think Hanine Resort. That's a pretty cool map. Let's see if changing the settings will actually work. So as you can see, that you've got multiple sort of just settings that you can put on for trying to improve, you know, how well a game performs. And as you can see, it hasn't made a damn difference. My favourite map is Hanine Resort. I think that's a decent map. I don't know if I'd say it was as good as, say, Caspian Border, but then again, I haven't really played enough of it to determine that. But overall, there are a good selection of maps. There's 10 maps, so that was one more than what was in Battlefield 3, and they're reasonably good. However, there are some things about the maps that I don't think are that important, or not as important as DICE would like you to think they are. What do I mean by this? Well, as you've probably already seen, DICE have been hyping up this thing called Levolution. What is Levolution, you might ask? The idea of Levolution, according to them, is that you can drastically change a multiplayer map, and this is all based on player actions. So, even though that's actually a lie, because in terms of Paracel Storm, that's not the case, and in fact, that is not. So they're wrong about that. But the idea of Levolution is the idea that you can drastically change a multiplayer map. So essentially, it's meant to be more destruction, which is what really should have been in Battlefield 3, considering that it was in Bad Company 2 to a very large extent. Except the scale of Battlefield 3 was a lot bigger, so what can you expect? However, thus far, Levolution has done jack shit, to be quite honest with you. I've not seen Levolution drastically change multiplayer. It's more important in some maps, but in other maps, it makes absolutely no difference at all. Take, for example, well, what would I say is a good example? Because on this map, really all that Levolution does is cave something in a little bit more, but it makes barely a fucking difference to the actual match. And if you think about it, some of the other ones don't really, like, in Paracel Storm, the thing that happens that is meant to be the Levolution is very much scripted thing where the storm comes in. That's not player driven. And when the ship crashes, which is player driven, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It just sort of hits. It sort of hits the land. Gold Mud Railway has pretty much barely any levolution. There's just some things that explode, which to me doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. I'd say the only map where levolution actually makes a difference in a big way is Flood Zone. In Flood Zone, a levee breaks, which floods the entire city, which means that urban or naval combat is more important, and you can't really stick to ground, otherwise you're fucked. Well, the water, I should say, because swimming is a good way to get yourself killed. But it doesn't really... that map kind of gets fucked up because of the Flood Zone. And I knew from the very beginning that that map was going to be fucked up because of it. And as you know it is. So, you know, there you go. This is where the major levolution thing happens here. But then levolution comes down to small things like turning off power, shit like that. That, I mean... I don't know if that's actually going to come into play. So, on the whole, I found levolution to be pretty pointless. Let's talk about naval combat on that topic, because DICE really wants naval combat to be a huge part of Battlefield, and to be quite honest with you, it's not going to be. They've taken some steps in the right direction, but boats aren't fucking fun. And so it doesn't matter what you do. It's just not going to be fun, because often you just get fucking stranded in the water and you have to swim. And swimming in this game, while improved, is still fucking boring. Let me explain. In Paracel Storm, there are a bunch of islands separated by water. And very frequently I found myself having to run... No, not run, swim, I'm sorry, because, you know, if there's one thing I love doing, it's swimming. Swim across gaps where I would get fucking obliterated by either the big boats, of which there are only about one for each side. And then, you know, or I'd get killed by land vehicles. So, and when I say that there's only that one really cool boat, which is actually a lot of fun to use, the rest of them are the shit ones or jet skis. So, I mean, you know, it's kind of pointless. I will say, however, that the water system has a couple of little kinks to figure out. The DICE was toting that all players would see the same wave or something at the same time, but that's really not the case. Because, of course, you're playing an online game, there's going to be a slight delay and a little bit of lag. In this case, the lag means that you'll be diving into waves and the fucking jet ski will go underneath the water, which is extremely fucking retarded. And it means that naval combat doesn't work as well as it should. And so it also, like in the campaign, it works fucking very well. But of course, you're not going to be playing the campaign much, and I doubt many people actually will besides me. Hear about the multiplayer, and that lag sort of kills it a little bit. It sort of damages how well it goes. Regardless of that, though, the fact that they're being this ambitious with a lot of the aspects of the game is good. And from my first impression, I'm having a shit ton of fun despite a lot of the issues. And I very much disagree with some people who are saying this is the best Battlefield. You've got to take a lot of things into account. You may say it's the Battlefield that you wanted, but things to take into consideration when you're saying this is the best has to do with the value for money. The improvements over Battlefield 3, are they worth $60, or in my case $80 because Australian prices are inflated. Are the improvements worth $80? That's the question you need to ask, not on its own is it good, because seriously, when you are talking about games, you can't base them on their sole merits as much as you would with, say, like a movie. You can't really do that with a game because you're paying a lot more money, and if the gameplay is very similar, then is it worth it? If they're different in terms of gameplay, then no, do not compare them. But you can very heavily compare Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 4. There was a 2-year gap, which, I mean, it means how much can you expect from a 2-year gap, but at the same time, you'd hope for a decent enough jump between them. And to be quite honest with you, even though I'm having a lot of fun, the jump between Battlefield 3 and 4 is very minimal. You may get confused while you're playing them because a lot of the improvements have just been made to a little bump in graphical fidelity, a little bit larger scale, and a little bit more destructibility, and less recoil. That's about it. They made better improvements to campaign. I haven't played this map, so this will be a first impression of the map. So those are important things that you really need to consider before picking up this game and before you actually judge the game. And I've seen a lot of the big Battlefield players saying like, oh, could this be the best Battlefield? Don't think so. It's a good game, but my opinion has to do with on whether it's iterative or not. And it is. And I would always judge games on whether they're iterative or not. If your game doesn't really do anything different, no matter what fucking franchise it is, you should be criticized. I don't like people who say Battlefield 4 deserves like a 10 out of 10, but Modern Warfare 3 or Black Ops 2 or Ghost deserves a 6. You're fucking insane, because it's a similar situation here. This is a very iterative sequel, and don't give me that bullshit of, oh, but there was a 2-year gap. Who fucking cares? It still had a similar development time to a game like Call of Duty Ghosts. And obviously, more people disagree with you, because the game, Battlefield 4, while it's going to be fucking hugely successful, is not going to sell as well as Call of Duty Ghosts. It never will, because they're different games. And I feel stupid forever comparing them, because yeah, they're both shooters, but they offer you a different experience. If you're going for a more arcadey, more unrealistic sort of game, then COD is for you. If you want bigger, large-scale battles and destructibility, then this Battlefield 4 is for you. It's as simple as that. And as much as you may like to deny it or not, this game is going down the COD path. And really, can you blame EA for doing this? It's worked for COD. I like to say that a lot. It worked for COD. And you can't blame a company that only cares about profit when they try and increase their revenue based on things like these. And based on becoming very much a sequel-heavy experience. You can't get mad about that. Yeah, bullet hosey right there. And yeah, this is PC, but still. It may sound negative, but if you enjoyed Battlefield 3, by all means, pick this game up, because it makes a lot of improvements over Battlefield. It makes a lot of improvements, but the thing is, though, is that should these improvements have been patched? Should we have waited another year for a different experience, a more evolved experience, or is it okay because it's Battlefield and we expect DICE to do better job than Infinity Ward, who I think before and maybe now may have. I don't think they're a better developer than DICE. DICE is a very community-centric developer who do a lot for their games, and though they work for EA, you know, I feel like Battlefield is the less EA-affected EA game, if that makes sense, where they get a big budget and they get more time than, say, you know, your Maddens and stuff like that. I keep dying. So, if you enjoyed Battlefield 3, by all means pick this up. Even though I've sounded negative, I'm enjoying playing this, as much as the video would not make it look that way. Let's get in the helicopter. The combined arms vehicular combat with the infantry combat just makes Battlefield so much fun. I think there are a couple things that we need to discuss, though, outside of the game that are relevant to the game itself. That may sound retarded, but let me explain. So, the review embargo ended on the day of launch in the US. And the reviews are pretty good. Like 8s, 8.5s. It did get a 9.5 from Machinima, which, no, it's not. I don't think it's that good. But the user score on Metacritic is a lot different and tells a very different story. The user score on Metacritic is mixed as shit. There are people giving it 10 out of 10, which, again, I disagree with you. But there are people giving it like 0 out of 10, saying it's a piece of shit. And to them, I also disagree with you. You may think that this game is not very innovative, but very iterative. That doesn't make it a 0 out of 10. The reason is that it's still playable, isn't it? A game cannot get a 0 out of 10 if there are a number of factors in play. A game is above a 0 out of 10 if you can fucking play it. This game is playable and is a very enjoyable experience. The graphics are good. That bumps it up too. So, already there, you don't have a 0 out of 10 game. You're just a fucking idiot who's letting your fanboy rage and hatred for COD because you think that Battlefield is so sacred cloud your vision. When really, you need to realize that Battlefield has always been heading down a similar path, and that you are in fact not a fucking hardcore gamer as you may think you are just because you play Battlefield. I hate that, and I don't like the Battlefield community. They're fucking awful. They're not as bad as, say, the League of Legends community, but they tarnish the game for me in a lot of ways because they're so stupid. Look at me, I play Battlefield. That means I'm a hardcore gamer, and COD is stupid. For fuck's sake, if you enjoy a game, just play it. Don't go around just always bitching about the other game. Have you ever noticed that? That there are fanboys often spend more of their time bagging the other game instead of fucking enjoying the game. If you are what you call a gamer, what you should care about the most is playing the fucking game, not complaining about other games, going to their videos and deliberately disliking the video because you're coming into it knowing you're gonna hate it, but you don't give a shit because you're only there to dislike it. And it's not even anything to do with being a hater. I hate when people use the term hater, but in this sense, you're hating it just because it's got the name attached to it. Are you insane? Hating on a game before you've even gotten the chance to play it. Dislike bars. Oh, the graphics are no good. And this is coming from the same fuckwits who will say that graphics don't make a game. What the fuck? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my god, come on. It's ridiculous. The game Battlefield is a good game for what it is doing. And really the fans tarnish it for a lot of people. A lot of people get put off because the community is fucking disgraceful. They spend so much time bagging COD and thinking how awesome their series is. And it's not even your series, it's a fucking game. You don't own it. It doesn't belong to you. You don't have any impact on the creation of the game. You don't develop it. So fuck you. I think I've said all that needs to be said. Let's end it here before this video goes for too long. This has been an Angry Gamer Plays Battlefield 3. My final thoughts are, pick up the game if you enjoy it, if you enjoyed Battlefield 3, and if you enjoy Battlefield on the whole. And fanboys, shut the fuck up. Seriously. You can dislike the game if you want, by all means, but at least have a fucking reason to dislike it. Or better yet, maybe even give the new COD a chance. You may find that you might enjoy it if you don't let your blind devotion cloud your judgment, which it very clearly has. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, let's end the... Oh, fuck me. I thought that was going to be an ending. Well, that's it. Pick up this game. I enjoyed it. I'm Fringy123, and as usual, have a good one.